Adrian Shelley, Text Director of Public Citizen. Appreciate the opportunity to be back in front of this committee. I'm passing some slides out. I'm afraid I'm going to move pretty quickly through them, and I'm not going to mention all the bills and everything that are in there, so please do take a look at what I've submitted there later on. I just want to point out our perspective on these issues. We're coming from a place of interest in public health and safety, right? People's lives. And the reality is people are sickened and die by air pollution and by chemical accidents every single year in Texas. And I don't say that to be discouraging. I say it because we've got amazing opportunity here. We've done great work in the last few decades in Texas. We can keep that progress up, right, and keep people safe and save lives. So that's our perspective on these issues. Starting out right at the beginning with chemical safety. Most of my examples are from the Houston area, my hometown, and it is said that there's a chemical accident as often as every 6 weeks in Houston. So we've got a piece of legislation to notify people when those happen. PFAS, forever chemicals, are of concern these days. We've got a couple of good bills on that. I'm on page 4 now, including by Representative Morales-Shaw, a health study on PFAS. Again, my interest here, public health. But when we talk about air quality, one of the other things we have to remember is the consequence of federal non-attainment designations, all right? And that is primarily ozone and particulate matter pollution. So on the next couple of slides, billions of dollars in economic consequences from being designated non-attainment under these pollutants. So that's one reason why we do a lot of this work, all right? Moving on to slide 8, there are a number of bills that address specific air monitoring situations in parts of the state. So Fort Bend County, there's a coal plant there that's responsible for 178 deaths every single year. Representative Reynolds has a bill related to hydrogen sulfide pollution. Again, this is deadly. We need a lower standard for that pollutant. Moving on, slide 12. Cumulative impacts are an issue that the agency is at present unable to deal with. The way that you hear the agency describe this sometimes is they say, we don't do siting, which means we can't decide whether this location is the right location for a facility. And if you look on slide 12, right in the middle of that slide, you see a community in Houston called Manchester, 450 homes, absolutely surrounded by polluting industry. It's not one facility that's impacting people's lives there. It's the clustering of those facilities. Speaking of clustering, let's move on to cement and concrete plants, slide 13. We've heard a lot of talk about cement since the summer. Turns out there's actually only 12 cement kilns in the state, and they seem to be of concern to us when they locate next to semiconductor manufacturers. Concrete plants are also a significant problem. There's 1,000 of these. We've got a side-by-side map here, 200 of these facilities just in the Houston area, all right? We do want to address that cement issue, and there's a good bill on that. We'll get to that in a few minutes. The next couple of slides just show you examples of these facilities. What do they look like? A concrete plant, a concrete crusher, a quarry, and a cement kiln. And as I mentioned, we've got House Bill 1946 that's going to deal with that cement kiln and semiconductor issue. Slide 18, this is what it looks like when concrete plants cluster. They locate next door to each other. Page 19, this is what happens when you live in a city that doesn't have setbacks. These photos are from the backyard of a home. This person lives right next door to a concrete plant. Got bills on the next couple of pages. Slide 22, advanced nuclear. There's a couple of bills here. There's one that I want to highlight. It's actually a Senate bill related to the Low-Level Radioactive Waste Compact Commission reducing the fees. We think this is a bad idea based on what may be on the horizon in the nuclear space. Chairman Anchia, your understanding is not far off here. If you remember the basement of the Springfield nuclear power plant, all of those containers of glowing stuff that's down there, that's actually what's going on. We're storing our nuclear waste in our basements, so we need to deal with that. We see most of the advanced nuclear proposals, at least right now, as so many Enron eggs, and we don't think that people, or rather the state taxpayers' dollars, should go toward funding those projects. TERP 24, we like TERP. We've got some good bills. Why do we like TERP? Because it's a cheap way to reduce air pollution and it's an incentive-based program. And then on slide 28, lots of good TCEQ bills. And the very last slide is a reminder that clean energy is within all of our means as individuals to participate in. We see a humble home there in San Antonio that's invested in solar. So that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Members, are there any questions for Mr. Shelley? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds, Representative Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adrian, I think you and I have done a lot of, we've had discussions about the impact of climate change. Do you have an opinion about that?
Yes, sir. And I believe we did our first session together in this committee in 2011, so I appreciate your seniority here on the committee. Climate change is one of the, or should be, one of the driving issues of our time, right? It's already resulting in global migrations. It is changing the way that we do business, the way that we produce energy. It's changing where people live, how they live. We often talk about the just astronomical consequences of dealing with climate change, but not dealing with it is going to be more expensive. I mentioned before, my primary interest here is in health and safety. There's a direct link between the impacts of climate change and other health and safety consequences of pollution. So appreciate that. And Representative Reynolds, you and others have some good bills, getting Texas to kind of start on that path of addressing climate change, study, Climate Change Assessment Council. It's time we started taking climate change seriously in the legislature.
Is there any, we've heard testimony that's been politicized, and I would agree that it has been politicized. Is there any science to substantiate that climate change is real?
Absolutely, sir. And you say it's been politicized, and honestly, it's a question of trade-offs, right? Where do we want our investment? Where do we want our dollars? It's been said that that's what politics is, right? It's the allocation of scarce resources to priorities, right? And again, if you think about this, ultimately, is not what we're doing to the planet, but what we're doing to ourselves, the people who have to live on the planet. I think the choice becomes clear. As for scientific evidence, the scientific consensus on climate change is clear, but you don't have to believe the science at this point because we are experiencing it every day in Texas, right? Globally, I think something like 15 of the hottest 20 years on record have been within the last 2 decades, right? Texas is the #1 state in terms of vulnerability to billion-dollar weather disasters, right? Fully 40% of the billion-dollar weather disasters in the United States since 1980 have hit Texas, all right? We're talking about wildfires, freezes, heat waves, hurricanes. All of those come to Texas, and all of them are made worse by climate change.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Chairman Anchia.
thank you. And I know we heard some testimony earlier that climate change has been politicized, but there really is no disagreement among climatologists, right, in the IPCC consensus that there's broad scientific consensus that man-made activity is causing climate change, right?
That's right, sir. It's one of the most robust fields of science that's been developed over the last 50 years. The global scientific community has reached consensus here and has for a long time. And we know this in part because the very industries that contribute to climate change, their own scientists concluded 50 years ago that this was an issue that they chose to put off. So it's really unfortunate what's happened. And again, we're already feeling the effect.
And I'm not sure you're aware of this, but even our state climatologist at Texas A&M agrees with the IPCC consensus and has confirmed this on repeated occasions in committee. You're aware of this?
Yes, sir. John Nielsen Gammon has put out some amazing reports over the years, very, very matter of fact about the reality. And again, using data in Texas, right? You can look at how hot it is in the state over time and draw your own conclusion.
And that I'm glad you pointed out that the oil and gas industry, believes in climate change. You can look at the biennial British Petroleum climate assessment to know it's true. ExxonMobil, as it talks about this, they were formerly headquartered in Irving. Certainly, the insurance industry understands that climate change is real, and people wonder about insurance rates in the state of Texas and why they're going up. Well, it's massive, severe weather events that are causing insurance companies to have to raise premiums because the losses are massive. But yet nobody or very few people in this building ever want to talk about that. And so I'm glad you were talking about it.
Yes, sir, and I believe Texas is about third or fourth in terms of insurance premiums in the country right now. Look at Florida for Texas's future. A policy costs an average of $12,000. That's a homeowner's insurance policy in Florida today. Insurers are leaving in droves. Insurers are starting to leave Texas. One small point there, I wouldn't say industry believes in climate change. You don't believe in science. Scientific evidence leads you somewhere, right? You draw conclusions based on data in the scientific method.
Yeah, that is a better way to say it. Well, thanks for being here and covering this committee, and I look forward to having this dialogue through the entirety of our legislative session.
Thank you, sir.